If you've been paying attention to the aggressive scene for the last 7 days, it has been a pretty damaging time for Razor Skates, and they have just been getting dragged left, right and centre over multiple issues. So I think the question we need to ask ourselves is Razor Skates messing up? Are they blowing it? The short answer is yes, they are. Over the last 5 years, in fact, over the last 10 years, their reputation hasn't been in a great place, but right now it's the lowest point it's ever been, and that is for two very significant reasons. First of all, pro team rider Jeff Howard got injured. He fractured his back in more than one place and punctured his lung, and his good friend Michael Garlinghouse set up a GoFundMe for medical expenses, which left a lot of people wondering why weren't Razors covering the costs, because he was filming for a pro skate at the time. I don't believe Razors should be covering the cost of his medical expenses because no brand in rollerblading does. Would I like them to? Yes. Do I wish the best for Jeff? Absolutely. But no other brand in blading does this, so I think it's quite an ask to expect Razors to do this. However, the way they handled it is the issue. Now, the rollerblading community at the time managed to gather over $10,000 for Jeff. They've also, and the last time I checked, managed to raise $20,000. And of that, Andy Wagner donated $100, which you can see if you go to the GoFundMe page. To put that in context, people like Demetrius George were donating far more than that. In fact, Matthias, the owner of Powerslide, Matthias Knoll, he donated $500. So Andy Wagner, the owner of Razors, who sponsors Jeff, donated $100. Matthias Knoll, the owner of Powerslide, donated $500. Now, that wound people up enough as it is, but then Razors kind of made things worse for themselves by raffling off a pair of Jeff's unreleased pro skates for $10 a ticket. Now, on the face of it, it is a good gesture until you realise that the rollerblading community has managed to generate over $10,000 for Jeff at this point, and Razors basically donated a skate that cost them, let's say $50, maybe $75, but no more than that. So Razors are coughing up $50, $75. The rollerblading community is now currently paid over $20,000. It's understandable why that would lead to a lot of people to criticise the brand. Now, that was bad enough, but I don't think Razors are liable for those costs because Jeff Howard isn't actually an employee. If you work at Powerslide or Razors and you work in sales, you're an employee. If you work in the warehouse, you're an employee. If you're a cleaner, you're an employee. So you get a wage, you get holiday leave, you get sickness. If you're a sponsored skater, you don't get any of these things. In the company that I work for, we hire several hundred people on full-time contracts and we hire less than 100 people on freelance. The people on full-time contracts, they get holiday leave, they get sickness leave, they get family leave, they're fully covered. The freelancers, they get a generous rate for their work and that is it, nothing else. If they're sick, if they can't do the work, they don't get paid. Simple as that. That's just the nature of full-time and freelance contracts. But it's the way that they handled it that most people consider to be disrespectful because there was just no gesture of goodwill from Andy or Razors at all. I mean, I've been running Wheel Scene for 11 years. I've been running it since 2011. Jeff has been skating for Razors longer than I've been running Wheel Scene, significantly longer. So even if they didn't cover the full amount, you would think Andy would just, out of the kindness of his heart, publicly say he was, going to pay a certain amount, or publicly say he was going to pay him his royalties early, or just something to acknowledge that Jeff is going through a hard time and he's doing everything he can to help. Donating $100 and putting up a pair of skates that doesn't cost them very much isn't really much at all. In fact, it feels like the blading community has done a lot more for Jeff than Andy and Razors have. If that wasn't bad enough, Yanderel Soverio, arguably one of the most exciting riders on Razors at the minute. He's just absolutely killing it. He won the last Boshi Pop skate off. He just released a new section for Chroma, which is amazing and you have to check it out. He put up a post talking about an incentive scheme where he had basically done enough to earn over $1,000. He invoiced Razors and they came back and refused to pay it. Yanderel posted about what happened in the rollerblading Facebook group, and he said that Razors claimed to have made an initial mistake. Well, unfortunately, if you make a mistake with the numbers, you're liable for it. The fact is, they had a written agreement via email where they agreed to it, Yanderel agreed to it, Yanderel did his part, and then they turned around and said they got the numbers wrong. Tough shit. If you get the numbers wrong, you still have to pay out because it's your mistake. You're liable, in any other circumstance of everyday life. Afterwards, they could address it and say that no one else was getting those kind of payments, but they still owed Yanderel the money. Not only is it bad enough that they didn't pay Yanderel the agreed amount, as far as I'm aware, they haven't paid Yanderel anything. They haven't paid him any of the amount at all. So they basically screwed him over. This has led to 4 other people leaving the Razors team. Ray Cronenberg put up an announcement on Instagram that he was quitting. Shane McClay then followed suit by putting up an Instagram post saying that he was quitting. Then Hazen Bell also put up something on Instagram saying that he was done too. And apparently it's not been confirmed, but Jordan Williams is also no longer riding for the team. Now, none of those guys are on the pro team, so it doesn't really seem like it would have a significant effect, but losing 5 riders in the space of less than a week is a pretty damning indictment of, what is going on at Razor Skates at the moment. Also, if you look at their pro team, of the last 5 people that Razors have made pro, 4 of them have quit. So Howie Bennett released his pro introduction section and then just disappeared off the face of the planet, never said why, but no longer rides for the brand. Then Stefan Brando was turned pro, released several sections for the brand, then quit. He was skating for Rosie's, he's now skating for FR. Then John Fromm was turned pro, released a bunch of sections, none of which Razors promoted or shared on their social media. He then quit and is now riding for Adapt. And last but not least, Dominic Bruce turned pro, released a pro introduction section, then had sections in Fifth Floor by David Sizemore. I think he had at least 2 sections in there. He's also quit and is now riding for Mesmer and Dead Wheels. The only person out of the last 5 people that Razors have turned pro that is stuck around is Derek Henderson. And according to Greg Preston, who filmed the promo for Derek's first pro skate, Derek had to pay for his own promo to be filmed for his pro skate. You came back from that and did Derek Henderson's pro skate promo.
Yeah, Razors didn't really do anything to me personally.
Yeah.
Obviously, I don't like the way they move. A lot of things that they do that are fucked up aren't secret. People know,
I remember after the promo came out, you put a thing on Instagram just saying, I want to thank Matt and Derek for paying for everything and covering all my costs. And I remember just thinking, that's crazy because you're making a pro skate promo for a company and they're not contributing anything.
So I would have made that for Derek because I knew Razors weren't going to pay me. Come on, it's Razors.
That's pretty messed up. Of those 4 people that quit, all of them pretty much had the same thing to say about Razors and Andy, that Andy was disrespectful, he was misleading, and he wasn't in any way supportive or inspiring once they got on the team. They didn't feel like they were part of anything, they didn't feel like they were appreciated, and multiple skaters stated that they felt disrespected. In fact, John Fromm said that he had a meeting with Andy where Andy basically insulted him to his face.
At the end of the conversation, I just flat out just asked, I was like, hey, I've been riding for you for 10 years. What do you want to see from me, or what do I have to do to get a pro skate? That's one of my goals. I want to achieve this, so tell me what, you want me to do. And his first response was, well, John, you're not Aragon or Shima. He was trying to come up with things as to why I couldn't be deserving of one. And he immediately went towards the contest. He's like, you've never won a Winter Clash or a Blading Cup. And I'm like, Derek hasn't either. I think he just got second or something. It was a very strange conversation. And I was like, okay. And then he kind of pointed out towards something about me not being unique enough. So, hey, that's a valid, those are your opinions and, you run the company, but he wouldn't quantify or just say hey, if you do more of this, we could definitely talk about, something in the future. He wouldn't even go there.
on top of the people that I've mentioned who've quit in recent times, Razors have lost a phenomenal amount of talent over the last 5 years. If you look at some of the people who have left, Sasha Lopez left, and he is now currently riding for Icon. Ren Fujiwara, who is arguably the future of Japanese skating and has this incredible switch up that I cannot stop watching, he left Razors and is now riding for them skates. Kirill Kochikov, he was riding for Razors, released several promos for them. He's now riding for USD. Matt Reyes, he left Razors and is now riding for them skates. And last but not least, Ilya Savison. Ilya is arguably one of the most exciting, interesting skaters in blading at the moment. He released several promos for Razors. He is now riding for Rosie's, and in the short time that he's been on Rosie's, he's got 2 skates with his name on it, a free skate and a Fifth Element, and he's been added to the pro team. If you look at just their team alone, Razors have massively squandered a phenomenal amount of talent, and it really says a lot about the brand and where it's going. Now let's talk about the incentive scheme. Yanderel Soverio mentioned this as his reason for quitting because, he felt like he did what he was meant to do, he invoiced the brand and they didn't pay him. Ray Cronenberg also mentioned the incentive scheme. He said that he was really excited about it, and then when he saw what happened with Yanderel, he decided that he didn't want to be in the brand. I don't know how anyone can be excited about this incentive scheme because I've seen the emails that were sent out to several riders because they sent them to me, and it basically looks like a bit of a scam. Now, you can see from the emails here that there was a point over the last couple of years with coronavirus and lockdown that Razors actually stopped sending a lot of their skaters skates for free. In fact, they were just charging them a discounted rate. If you're sponsored by Razors and you're paying for skates, you're not actually sponsored by Razors. You're not a sponsored rider. They are not sponsoring you. You are simply a customer getting a severely discounted rate. You're not a sponsored rider. So they were getting these skates at a discounted rate and then basically getting the opportunity to earn the money back. But the way this program works is it only really works if you've already got a large social media following or a large YouTube following. If you don't have a large social media following, what it's basically asking you to do is post incessantly, get on people's nerves, oversaturate yourself, and just look like you're really desperate, because that's the only way you can achieve these kind of numbers. Unless you have viral clips or a huge following, the only way to do it is by posting all the time, and the minimum amount you can invoice them for is $50. Now, apparently Razors didn't bank on the reel system being so popular and people racking up a bunch of views that way, and that's how they got themselves into trouble with Yanderel. But that's on them. That is their mistake. The fact is, they've got employees who it should be their job to figure that out and realize that it was going to cost them a small fortune. It's not the skater's fault. The skater did what they were asked to do and didn't get paid for it. Now, Razor's reputation is well and truly in the gutter at the moment. They're going to have to do some serious crisis management to bring it back from this. Fortunately for them, the blading community has a really short memory because this has been going on for years and not enough people seem to care or seem to care enough to act with their wallets and not buy Razor skates. Because numerous people have been on Platform Podcast, like pretty much every Razors rider that's no longer riding for them has terrible things to say about Andy and Razors. And if you look at Jumpstreet Podcast, it's a pretty similar story. Jeff Stockwell was on there saying that he couldn't even get a pair of his own pro skate. Andy wouldn't send him them. Julian Bata said he basically just got sacked from the team for no reason, just because the team manager at the time didn't like him, and Andy and no one in the Razors team basically stood up for him. And it just kind of seems like it's an ongoing theme of Razors just not treating their riders well.
I never liked Razors.
Like the skates or the company?
No, Andy.
Yeah.
Yeah,
right. The skates were the shit.
The company's cool. I mean, the skates are cool, right? The skates are cool. Mm-hmm. But that guy, he never really gave a shit about his team riders, ever. That doesn't surprise me.
So what does that mean for the future? Do I want to see Razors go out of business? Do I want to see them leave the aggressive market? Absolutely not. I think it would have a devastating effect on aggressive skating, street skating, whatever you want to call it, and it would basically set back all the progress we've made in the last 5 years. The rollerblading industry is a really delicate ecosystem, and if you remove such a large chunk of it, which is what Razors is, I think it would be quite catastrophic for a lot of aspects of the industry, such as, distribution companies, national level with things like skate shops. Skate shops rely on Razor skates because when they get released, they're guaranteed sales. It's very, Razor skates sell out. They always sell out. They're a guaranteed thing. When a shop gets them in, they know that it's income. So if shops, especially smaller shops, were no longer selling Razor skates or hardly selling any Razor skates, it would have a devastating effect on their business. And in fact, it would probably close a lot of them down. And on top of that, Razors has a huge following. If you think about Salomon, when Salomon left the inline industry, a lot of people quit because Salomon was their skate. It was the only skate they wanted to ride. They thought it was perfect for them. It fit their foot just right. And you can tell that now because there's a lot of people riding Salomons instead of riding brands that are currently active in the sport because it's their skate. Razor's the same. There's lots of people, if you've got a big foot or a certain shape of foot, Razor's the only skate you'll ride, and it's the only skate that feels comfortable. If you look on social media, a lot of them just don't seem to care that Razors mistreats their riders or doesn't pay their riders properly. All they care about is the fact that they love the skate and the skate works for them. For those people, you're not going to convince them to leave that brand, and if Razors decides to stop selling aggressive skates, we could lose even more skaters, and it would put us back to where we were at the start of the 2000s, in the mid 2000s. You also see quite a lot of people on social media saying things like, just skate for free, skate for fun. Why are you trying to make money off it? Blading is not a job. Rollerblading's a job to Andy. Rollerblading is a job to Razor Skates. It's a money-making vehicle to both those entities. So what you're saying is, when you're saying just skate for fun, just skate for free, don't expect too much for it, is what you're saying is the skater shouldn't expect to get paid. But the skate company and the skate company owner who's making money off the skater and their image and their talent, they should get paid. And that's a really harmful message to set out, because it basically says that you can just, line up and manipulate as many skaters as you want and take advantage of them. And then when they get injured or they're no longer at the top of the sport, they just get discarded. That's a really, really harmful, damaging way to look at the future of our sport. I'm not the biggest fan of Razors. I've made that abundantly clear over the years, but I don't want to see them go away. I just want to see them act more responsibly as a sponsor, as a member of the community, as a brand in the industry. Where other brands, where you've got like Rossi's and USD and them being more transparent about royalties and things like that, Razors have gone the other way and they've kept people in the dark, and people have found out, through hearsay, that skaters are only getting things like $2 a skate. I don't know if that's true. In fact, I'm pretty sure that last time I heard that they were thinking of raising it to $10, but the lack of transparency just makes it even worse, because people are led to, come to their own conclusions. And those conclusions, when so many former riders have negative things to say about the brand, is going to be negative. What do you think about the whole Razors situation? Would you like to see them become a more responsible sponsor and brand within the sport? Let me know in the comments below. Thank you to our Patreon supporters. You are absolutely incredible and truly appreciated. If you want to support me on Patreon, you can do so for as little as £3. Check out the link below.